Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County Committee and Ad Hoc Committee on Reapportionment. Today is Tuesday, December 21st, and the time is now 4 o'clock. We have a couple of items today to discuss. Number one, what we're going to do is ask our county attorney, Michael McNeil, to give you a brief synopsis of the reapportionment process, the steps that Macon-Bibb County has completed over the last couple of weeks to get to the point we're at today. Just as soon as he gets through giving that information, we're going to turn this over to the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee consists of Commissioner Elaine Lucas, Commissioner Bill Howell, Commissioner Paul Bronson as voting members. Ex officio members is myself, along with Mayor Pro Tem Seth Clark. We will ask them at that time to select a chairperson, and they'll be responsible for running the additional meetings for this 4 o'clock meeting. So this time I'd like to call on Attorney Michael McNeil to give us some information on how we arrived at the point today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution that's on the agenda this afternoon was published on board docs, and a lot of this history is outlined in that resolution. If anyone has access to that online, they can follow along. But we had a special meeting of the Committee on Committees back on November 22nd, and that meeting established a ad hoc committee on reapportionment. The Committee on Reapportionment went up to Atlanta on November 30th to the Legislative and Congressional Reapportionment Office of the Georgia General Assembly. It was the 3 committee members, the 2 ex officio committee members, myself, and the clerk, Janice Ross. And we met with Executive Director Gina Wright up in Atlanta to discuss reapportionment. The reason for the reapportionment is because we had the 2020 census that was completed. The census showed an increase in Bibb County of 1,799 people over the 2010 population, and showed that the current commission districts number 1, 4, and 6 all gained population, while the other 6 districts lost some population. And so the reapportionment was necessary to bring all of the districts in balance with each other, and to preserve the one person, one vote principle. And so for that reason, the reapportionment committee and Ms. Wright developed a map which is attached to the resolution that's on the agenda for this meeting. The average population size for the districts has increased by about 200 per district to 17,483. And the proposed map includes all districts within a 1.87% deviation, while preserving traditional principles of districting such as contiguity, compactness, unifying communities of interest, and keeping voting precincts all within the same district where possible. And so there are exhibits that are attached to this resolution. It includes the proposed map. It includes a second map, which is an overlay between the proposed district lines and the current district boundaries, so you can see what's changed. And there are some demographics records to show what the population is and what the demographics of the population are within each district. And then this will be procedurally adopted by the commission and then referred up to the Georgia General Assembly, and it has to be approved as a local act by the Georgia General Assembly. And so we have run the ad in the newspaper that's required in order to introduce that local legislation.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil. This time we'll move on to election of chairman. And after we elect the chairman and chairperson, I'll step aside and let the chairperson lead that. If you want to be recognized as a member of the ad hoc committee, or if the chair chooses to allow outside members to participate, at this point, since I have control of the board, if you will just raise your hand, and if the chair recognizes you, I'll turn your speaker on. So this time we'd entertain motions. Commissioner Howell?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Elaine Lucas to chair this ad hoc committee, please.
Okay. Any other nominations? Can we have Commissioner Elaine Lucas? Okay. We'll say all in favor of Commissioner Elaine Lucas being the chairperson, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, and we'll turn this meeting over to you, Commissioner Lucas, and I'll have your mic on.
Thank you very, very much. And I do appreciate the support of the group in allowing me to take on this responsibility. Um, First of all, I just want to say that I just commend the group that went to Atlanta because we had all the resources that we needed to work on any changes that we needed to make to the map. We had all of the information that we needed. We had Ms. Wright, who is the the director of the reapportionment office. We were invited by the chair of our local delegation, Senator Kennedy, to have a span of time that we could go as a group and work on our maps. And we avoided an additional step that we would have had to have taken if we had gone through the regional commission, which has been just very, very helpful in the past. But we avoided one step because any information that any work that you do with your regional commission, that work has to be approved by the reapportionment office. So we stepped over. We made one giant step by going to Atlanta and having the head reapportionment guru to work with us on making those changes that we needed to make. And so I want to commend everybody who went. I was surprised and pleasantly surprised at the amount of work that commissioners had already done in reviewing maps, reviewing what we have in place presently, and the kinds of concerns they've heard over the years as far as how our map was out of whack and what we needed to do to correct it. There were a number of variables. We learned that we have a shifting population. We learned that 2 of our districts were receiving a lot of folks and the others were losing people. Mine happened to be one of those districts. District 3, I was sorry to say, we had lost folks, and District 9, Commissioner Tillman's district, we had the largest numbers of citizens to gain to get to 17,483. And I want to say the main purpose here is to equalize your district so that you have each commissioner representing about the same number of people. That's one of the main things that you have to do. And we as a group had to juggle populations, black and white, and you know, black and white populations are not the only populations that you're dealing with. You've got other groups of folks that you have to deal with as well in drawing your lines. We also had to deal with the population shifts, which are still ongoing in our community. And we also had to deal with some historic imperfections in the outlines of the map. So I just was amazed at the amount of work we got done, how informed the commissioners were, and how successful we were in putting together a map that addressed all of these, including the deviations, which means the numbers that you're off your target. And so we were able to handle all of those things very successfully. And then we came on down, happily down 75. And you know what a thrill that was. But we had accomplished a big task. And I think they were impressed with us up there, that we brought a delegation and we were able to achieve what we achieved. So at this time, Commissioners Howell and Brunson are the other 2 members on this reapportionment ad hoc committee. So do you have comments that you'd like to make?
I defer to Commissioner Bronson.
I was deferring
All right.
to you.
Are you going to go by age or beauty?
Beauty. Beauty, you got me, brother. Go for it.
We have a third.
Well, I'll go ahead. First, it was an honor to be asked to be on this committee, being one of the new guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to go. Second, there was a lot of time put in this, I think, by all of us, and I think there's been a lot of time put in since we were up. We had to look at, like Commissioner Lucas said, we had to look at a lot of different things. We had to look at, the number one thing was deviation, to try to equal them up. And when you consider that, just for a visual, if people will think about it, if you take I-75 and Hardeman Avenue, if you're sitting on the bridge at I-75 and Hardeman Avenue, there are 6 of 7 commissioners that live north of that line. So it's not real simple to just divvy up the pie when you've got such a disproportionate amount of representatives living north of Hardeman Avenue. A lot of folks have said, why didn't you do it horizontally and why didn't you do it vertically? Well, that sounds real good in theory, but it just doesn't work. So we had to take kind of what we had. Next to deviation, one of the most important things to all of us was to keep each sitting commissioner in their district. Again, that's not real easy to do when you start having to take chunks out of one district and move them over to another district, and you already have lines that are kind of, if you look at the map and you see the little red dots on the map, some of our commissioners have chosen to live right at the edge of their district. So that made things a challenge. Not that I would be talking to anybody. I'm sorry.
As you're talking, do you want any of those illustrations up for folks to see?
If we had, if we could get the original map up, draft 1, I think it is.
This is the one that we,
This is the one that we went when we went. This is the one we came home with. So if you look at what I'm saying, if you look at the 005, which is obviously District 5, and you look at Commissioner Clark's residence there, you see that 6 of the commissioners live north of that. So it would have been very hard to have went east to west to divide up, even though that's where some of the numbers were. That's where some of the districts came from. If you try to work north and south, that would create a problem too. Plus you'd have some really odd looking lines trying to sort it out, because you got to remember, if you go all the way to the east or you go all the way to the south or all the way to the west, there's a lot of property out that way, but not necessarily very much residence. And we have in Macon, as everybody has figured out, inside the corridor between 75 and 475, if you take that area, that's where the majority of the population is at. So when you're trying to start spreading it out, and I know that what we've came up with is not perfect. I know that the other one that we're going to look at is not perfect. And if we spent the next year on this map every day in Atlanta, we would probably all come up with a different map. I do feel like this was the one that we all worked together on. I'm sitting here looking at the numbers on both of the options that we have, and yes, there's some tweaking in certain districts, but if you move the line just a little bit, then it just goes the other way. So it's really hard to get everything as equal as possible. As the Commissioner said, the next thing we had to look at was the demographics of the districts and try to keep those as close as we could. But another thing that some people may not realize, once we kind of tweaked it like we wanted it, then Gina, the girl that was helping us, she went back and said, well, we can't do this because of precincts. She tried to straighten up some precincts that have been messed up since consolidation. For whatever reason, the lines there were precincts that were kind of overlapped that needed fixing. Another thing too that we had a lot of discernment with was census block. And a census block may be 2 or 3 houses, or it may be 3 or 4 streets. So just because you said, well, we just need 15 people, you couldn't move people like that. It had to be the census block, because that's where they get their data, and that's where all the information comes from. So it was a whole lot more of a challenge than I thought it would be. We spent the good part of the day, by the time we traveled up and traveled back, as a group, looking at it and coming up with the plan. And I'm content that while it's not a perfect map, I feel like that everybody worked hard to make it work. I thought we had a good consensus when we left, and I'm happy with this map.
Okay, Commissioner Bronson.
Hey, I echo the sentiments. It was a true honor to be able to sit on this board and work with you guys to do what is right by the people. And as I stated before, there is a lot of work. I've learned a lot in this time span of working with you all, even up until now. So there was a second version that after we sat down and discussed it, there was a second version of the map that was made. Can we put that up, please? So on this version of the map, as stated before, as you already said, right, a lot of commissioners are living right there at the edge of the districts. In this particular map here, my goal or our goal here was basically to simplify the voting areas, ensure that we have fair representation across the board for all communities that reside within our districts, to also include that we avoided any mishap or any gray line walking, should I say, violating the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So in doing so, we maintained Vineville remained within District, let me make sure I got this right, District 5. Vineville won't remain in that, as your map shows. Vineville 1 would show up in my area, and then from difference between our map 2 is East Macon 1 would go over into District 3, but on this map, East Macon 1 will remain in District 2. Also with District 8, if you look at it, we avoid the V. I don't know if we were trying to make the V a representation of Virgil over there. But in this particular map here, it creates that unity there. It basically simplifies where a voter would go. Instead of saying being split in between District 9, they would know in District 8 where they are. We open the floor up in regards to District 1 being at the tip of the spear here, maintaining District 1, giving them a whole set there. And then I want to say in District 7, myself and Bill operating both within House and Avenue area. The focal point for this map, particularly on version 2, will allow double representation. So in a sense where I myself will be representing East Macon, we will have East Macon be represented by myself and Commissioner Lucas, downtown being shared between me, myself, and Virgil Watkins, and South Macon being shared between myself and Bill Howell. That's kind of the ideal. Sorry, sir. That allowed the map, this particular map, if you look at it across the board, allowed a voice for districts to be served. Not just District 1, not just District 2, but across the board, all districts will be able to have that double representation for that area.
Okay. Other commissioners? Did other commissioners have, I'm assuming the mayor, attorneys, that we are also allowed in this committee to hear from other commissioners. Are there others who wish to speak on one or the other of these maps or give additional information? Commissioner Watkins.
I guess of concern to me is the demographic breakdown. I appreciate all the work y'all did and bringing us to this point. I would like a little time to review the breakdown to make sure I'm interpreting what I saw correctly. Because a couple points of concern. I know, I think it was District 2's voting age population shift when it comes to black representation within that minority opportunity district. I think currently, if I was understanding the data correctly, that district is 63% black. And it looked like one of the proposals was taking that to 51. And I can understand, I know I heard everything that y'all said about the need for 17% and everything about the difficulties of the map. But importance of, again, keeping that a minority opportunity district, I need to hear more as to why such a severe shift in population, because that is an extreme change that I think, I understand voting age population, but when you think about being right at 51%, when I factor in eligible voters or registered voters, people of color disproportionately in this community are either immigrant populations that may have some type of status that prevents them from voting, or in trouble with the judicial system and ineligible or in jail, that I could very easily see, if it was a black on white race, it being below 48% or 50%. And so, and anecdotally, I know just from living here that area has not shifted that much in population in terms of movement of the types of folks who stay in each individual neighborhood. So I need a little, could y'all elaborate what happened there, and also see the same type of shift, more than 10% in that direction in District 5 as well?
Okay, two points, and Michael, you can chime in on this as well. But 2 points is the transience of our population. There is a trend now toward movement from what were overwhelmingly black precincts into what are now majority white precincts. That trend is continuing. Also, the districts that we presently represent will be in place, from what I understand, for 3 more years, for the remainder of our terms. They don't automatically, upon approval, take effect. Am I correct? That they stay in place, so with the next election, you would have these new maps in place. During 3 years, if the trends continue, we're still gonna have that shifting population. So these numbers are gonna change. The other thing that I think we all have to acknowledge is the fact that the census, we didn't have a complete count on the census. We know that there are more people in these districts than these numbers show, and I think those folks are gonna show up. We'll see them at election time. So I think the figures here are bottom line numbers, and I think those numbers are gonna shift. That's what I wanted to share. Did you want to add?
And I'm sorry.
The question was to explain, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, to explain the decrease in the black percentages of population in the previously majority black districts, especially districts 5 and what was the other one? 2.
Right. Right. That's my recollection of the meeting in Atlanta, was that we spent probably the last hour that we were up there looking for ways to loop in little extra neighborhoods here and there to even out the populations more. But ultimately the conclusion, and y'all can speak to this yourselves, but my recollection is that the conclusion that Ms. Wright made was that's just how the population is located now, and that, you know, wherever she tried to move in to even out the demographics just a little bit, she was finding that she was making it more concentrated, and ended up kind of settling on the map that's proposed today.
When I tell you this was difficult, it was difficult. You're juggling 4 or 5 different things at one time. Do we have? Did Commissioner have one more point?
So
And then
in
Ms. Wynn.
2012, when the district was made, consolidation time, the first numbers we have on here, District 2 was at 62% black. Today, as it's drawn up, it's at 63% black. The new proposal drops it to 51% black. And I guess what I'm saying, that I know one of the big points when we first met was that we were going to do 5 majority black districts, and we brought that to the edge as close as we could at 51. And I guess I'm asking why, because there's an argument to be made that 51 isn't exactly a fair fight. I know it's an argument to be made, but that's the numbers, and I'm asking a 10% shift, and it's the same in my district, or the district that I currently represent. I'm not up for re-election, so I'm not concerned about those things, but just in the city going forward, to go from 65% to pushing 80%, 77, I think, voting age population, again, is an unnecessary shift, particularly when I'm seeing this literally border shifts between me and Commissioner Bronson. And, you know, in thinking about the ideas of cracking cracking the district and packing the district, there is 51% is too close, 75% is overkill. And there should be something we can do in between those two. And I see the same thing on the borders of District 5, the same decrease, and again, net increase to your district. I believe you're above 80%.
It's right at 80.
Right. And
It's no longer mine. After
Right.
3 years, there'll be someone else running. I'm term limit.
Right, and I guess my concern there is we could be inadvertently creating a commission that is represented by 3 minorities and 6 whites. And again, we'd be whoever's in our seats would be super safe, but District 5 and District 2 would be vulnerable in a way that, again, even at current day 62 and 63%, where they lie now, they have flipped back and forth between the races, which I would argue that's competitive and healthy for the community, but to go to where it's locked in is, I guess, what I fear. Because right now, I think as fair as 4, it's a 4th. We know that we have 4 set districts, and I guess 2 that are somewhat on the fence. To go to just 3 set, but I'm repeating myself, but I think my point's made.
Okay. But I'm just going to repeat that when you're juggling all of the variables at the same time, then what we came up with was what we thought would work, would also pass this entire commission, and would also be signed off by the mayor, and also pass the test with the legislative delegation. The alternative is to send something that's unacceptable to the legislative delegation and have them to draw it like they drew it back when we consolidated. So that's just bottom line. Commissioner Wynn.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Lucas. I wanted to really just have a positive note here and thank the committee for the hard work you did, because this is not an easy task at all. And just listening to you talk, I know that it took a lot of work and a lot of time trying to make it right for this community so that we have it evenly distributed. I think you've done a commendable job. Thank you, all 3 that did this. I know this was a lot of work. I don't have any complaints about my district. I didn't move on the edge of it. I lived there.
Yes, you
okay,
did.
it just happened to be squatting on the line, okay? But there's a difference. But I'm glad you left me in there, right on the edge, and I commend you for the work you've done. That's all I want to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Who? Commissioner Bronson.
Hey, so Commissioner Watkins, to your point, so on the second version of the map, it kind of addresses where you're going, where you're coming from. When we start talking about representation and so forth, on the second version of the map, what was worked out basically was that District 2 ended up with 62% African American vote, District 3 would drop from 80% down to 73. District 5 would drop down to 61%. And then District 8 and District 9 would be 79% and 72%. So the map worked on the second version of the map that was proposed. It works that out. Granted, I know, like she said, Commissioner Lucas already said before, there is a lot that goes into that piece of it. But based off where you're coming from, that is presented on the second version of the map. We've kind of addressed that piece of it. Even on the voting population, District 2 will put you at 59%. District 3 will put you at 71% African American vote, and then you have 58% for 5. And then District 8, 77%, and then District 9, 70%. So it can be worked out. It's just a matter of, it really just comes down to the commission acknowledging that piece of it and just selecting the right map. And I'm really hoping that we can move forward on the commission with the second version of it and then push it forward from there. But I agree with Commissioner Lucas. We should be able to handle this here in-house and move it forward.
Okay. Were there others? Are we going, Commissioner Howell? And Wilder?
I'd like to also chime in and say I appreciate the work y'all have already done. When I first looked at it, I did look, and no matter where I looked in my district, if you pulled some out of it, I was going to know somebody over there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still acceptable. I've really only been able to look at this version 2 for the last couple of hours. I just don't like it. Just going to leave it at that.
Okay. Are there other commissioners who wish to speak? Commissioner Howell?
Yeah, and I've heard all the talk on it. One thing I would like to address, Commissioner Watkins, there are two different sheets, so it depends on which sheet of music we're talking about. I like to try to compare apples with apples, so I'm looking at both of them, and if you look where there was a deviation in one district, it just changed the other one when you really look at it. But when it comes down to breaking them down and staying in precincts, you can't carve out 1% or 2% or, it jumps pretty big when you try to keep the precincts like they wanted it up there, because they went back and changed it after we had sorted it out. Then they went back and then we had to go back and readjust because it had moved enough because of their census data. When it comes down to picking one of the other maps, I have to stick with the original one, and I have to tell you why. Because that was the one that the group did. I'm not sure who helped with this. I don't know if you did it on your own or whoever did it. I mean, I don't know who did it, and it doesn't matter, but had we had input and we had another day or whatever, we could have worked it through, that's fine. But at this point, we've already everybody worked on the one map. And looking at version 1 and version 2, there were tweaks in my district. And if you take your version and then you take the map that we're working off of now, my districts don't even look the same, because we carved a little bit one time and then we carved a different piece out the next time, and it's just too much change. I look at, just for example, district. Commissioner Lucas's District 3, while her district looks somewhat the same in both maps, if you really look at the south end of her district, we have burdened her with an entire southern end of her district is industry. I bet there's not 300 votes out there with the way it's drawn on version 2. So there's not a whole lot, because I'm looking at it and it separates right there at, correct me if I'm wrong, but it separates on 247. Well, anything east of 247, there are a few scattered houses, but that's out there now where all these roads are where there are now solar energy farms and where there's the airport, and there's no real there's no representative, there's nobody out there, there's no constituents out there other than a few people that live over behind Kumo and those folks. So while I appreciate the extra work that went in the second map, good with the first one.
Okay, were you finished? Okay.
So the what's the young lady's name? I forgot her name. Is that fast?
Sir?
The guru.
Oh, that's right,
Miss Wright.
Gina Wright.
Forgive me if you're watching this, Miss Wright. Forgive me for that. So Miss Wright went back in and calculated. Before we got ready to leave out, I did make it known to the group that there was some disagreement within the map that was drawn, and I voiced that before we all walked out. And then saying that piece up, Miss Wright came back and she said, "Hey, I tell you what we'll do. We'll drop another map, and I'll try my best to kind of make sure the deviations are not too far off," which they're not. Right? I think we on the second map, second version of it, I think it hammered out pretty well. The second piece in regards to that, as stated already, right, we do have commissioners that are still here. We have commissioners, respectfully speaking, that won't be here come next term around. And it's not necessarily putting a burden on that person. I, for one, feel that regardless of where you live at, regardless of what side of town you live on, we have a responsibility to take care of those citizens. That's just plain, flat, simple. So I would not necessarily say it would be called a burden, or because someone decides to live or move in a particular area, that we just wipe them off, right? That goes back to what I stated earlier as far as double representation. Because I think me and you both, right, we've had issues in South Macon, but we both take care of the issues in South Macon. Is that a fair statement? So in the version 2, it allows that, it encourages that. It encourages to where citizens understand and know where their voting precincts are. They know who their representative is, but at the same time, we basically have each other's back to ensure that the citizens are taken care of. So I'll hold strong on version 2 and hope that you support me on that.
Yeah, and I would hope that nobody's insinuating that whomever is in a particular district is not taken care of. I know that's not what anyone's trying to say, because we're all sworn to represent those folks that are in the district. And so we just do the very best job we can in making sure that we handle our business. And our business was to make sure that we had the right numbers of folks in these districts, to make sure that the districts didn't look like snakes and dragons and all of these other things, and that they were not so out of line, that there were people with areas of community interest, I believe is the term, or something close to that term. And certainly in District 3, having that district to move all the way from Northeast Macon through the swamp, cover both airports, and then go on and proceed into one side of Houston Road, that was not including people of common interest. Well, they might have had common interest, but it didn't appear that way on that particular. So that was our first move, as you will recall, to try and correct that particular ill-shaped district. And then the other thing was to pull people back together who had naturally worked together and who probably were cousins and uncles and aunts and went to school together at Northeast and all of that. And that's to put East Macon 1 back with that district where it had been all along. So those were some of the kinds of things that we tried to do, taking into account what made sense and what we had heard from others. Was this, Michael, did you have something else you needed to?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to mention, as a matter of procedure, the resolution that's on the agenda is the resolution to approve the first map that was generated by the committee while we were up in Atlanta. And so y'all have been debating in terms of first map and second map. And so to the extent that Commissioner Bronson or whoever wants to introduce the second map, that would be in the nature of a motion to amend. But the one that's on the agenda for voting right now is the first map that was prepared by the committee in Atlanta.
Okay, are we at that point where we're going to entertain motions on the maps, or are we still in discussion?
If you may.
Commissioner Watkins, do we?
Could you pull map 1 up again? And I was curious if we had the capabilities to zoom in. And if so, could you? I'm curious about, and I wonder how you would have it in this way. In Census Tract 127, it's pretty much the Houston Avenue corridor, right around Newburgh Avenue. It is going to be 3 districts that make up Newburgh Avenue. So 8, 7, 2 is like the little isthmus right in, or you can't see me, in between Godfrey 2 and Godfrey 3. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, I got it right here.
Is that the present one or the
I'm assuming I want to
proposed?
see version 1, the one that's actually on the table for discussion.
Okay, the draft that we came up.
So it's right around West Granada Terrace, going down Houston Avenue. If you can see the, I guess, what's a landmark here? Yep, yeah, King Street, Evergreen, right in that little isthmus in between 8 and 2. So again, this is basically Census Tract 127. It's the Houston Avenue corridor, even the dividing line between. What number are you? In between 7 and 2, that is Houston Avenue. And I keep Census Tract 127 is not to speak ill of any community because it's not the community's fault, but that is our most downtrodden community. According to census data, it's the lowest income place we have. It's the place with the most blight. I think it's the place where we're putting our shot spotters. It's the place where we focused on as it comes to blight removal the most. It is a major problem area in our community. It's a trigger word, but the phrase gerrymandering includes a phrase called cracking. Communities like this one, and this is a textbook example, where we have a community of interest that is split up 3 different ways. It makes accountability for that neighborhood right there virtually impossible. It is discouraging. It is complex. And again, the byproduct of this is a history of them not getting the services that they need. This is one area. It's been like this even in the old map. We didn't do a great job back then of fixing it, and it still exists, I guess, in this new map. And I'm curious as to moving the rest of it to District 2, 3, or 8, but these folks should all be made whole. We don't have this problem in, again, north of Hardeman Avenue. This does not happen to subdivisions in our community. But this area in particular, and right around Hazard 1 in the Village Green, Rocket Creek, Bloomfield Road area, another area that we talk about, high crime, high poverty, you also see where folks are in and out the district in an interesting way. And again, it makes what I would call a butterfly shape for District 8. And I commend Commissioner Bronson for taking note of that issue. And again, you see that around Vineville 3-2, which is the Unionville neighborhood, which again, high crime, high poverty, cracked up when it comes to voting rights. But all I'm asking about is this area on Houston Avenue right now. What would be the impact numerically to make that census tract whole? And even, so, yeah.
Do we, can
I think for that area right there, you're the same. But if somebody can switch it, I don't have a problem. Yeah, sure.
I don't think they're able to do that. We were able to do that in Atlanta and go through all of these different scenarios and try and make sure that we had as few divisions of neighborhoods as we possibly could. We worked extremely hard on that, but it's impossible to correct every single thing. but we worked as hard as we could on that. Commissioner Howell, did you have some?
Actually, I'm looking at version 2. Actually, you added a 4th district in there in that same Godfrey 1 area. If you look at if you look at if you look at the version 2, and the simple explanation for what you're asking is that is Godfrey 1. Unfortunate as it is, the way it's divided, the blue lines tell you that this was Godfrey 1. I had the southern end of the southern part of Godfrey 1. If you took this out of District 7 and put it in any other district, your numbers would be even worse skewed. I think I got it right that time. It would be even worse messed up demographically. So we took the district, that's Godfrey 1. I think that puts all of Godfrey 1 in District 7. And I hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately these districts have been there for 50, 60 years. And I mean, Godfrey 1's been there forever, it's still there. And this was part of the task that the state sent us to do, was to fix that and quit having divided precincts. But that's the explanation why that looks so funny on the map. Well, if you did, you would
You
skew
still change your numbers.
you would skew the numbers
Still,
even worse.
Could you define what you mean?
The population, the demographics of the population. You would take
Total number of people?
no, the demographics of the population.
You're talking about 17,483 people with a deviation of a little bit here or there. What was our deviation that we were not to?
The largest that we have on the proposed map is 1.87%. There's not really a standard that's been established. There's been some revisions made by the U.S. Supreme Court to the Voting Rights Act over the last 10 years, and so historically they've used 10% as a deviation. But they said specifically up in Atlanta, because of the computer modeling that we have, you can get a lot closer than 10%. What you used to not be able to get, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
No, they
No.
used to be.
No,
No.
it's not anymore.
They asked
Now,
us to stay at 1 to 2 when we were
they
there.
wanted us to get as close to 0 as possible,
Right.
and that's what we had to do. That's what I mean by we were juggling a whole lot of things. If you moved one little area, one little census tract, you were impacting the whole map. And so that was what our struggle was all the way through the process. And that's why folks are saying we accomplished a lot. It's not perfect, but we were able to accomplish a lot. And with the trends in population and the movement, then I think these percentages are going to be different come time for the next election. Are you okay?
On the version, I'm sorry, thank you. On version 2 of the map, you're still at 1.8. Everything else drops. So on the second version, which I do want to make an amendment to add that, if that's possible, we still managed to complete the tasker. Overall, all the concerns that the commissioners are having right now are handled and fixed within the same version, within version 2.
You were in the same room with us up there in Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
I Mayor
stepped
Pro
out and
Tem.
changed
Michael,
it.
I just have just a quick 2 questions. To the best of your knowledge, was the first map drawn in accordance to open meetings requirements?
The open meetings law has an exception in it that says traveling up to meet with state agents, executive or legislative agents at their offices is not a meeting. And so it was categorically exempted from the Open Meetings Act and so compliant.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the rest of that statement?
I was just
The
curious.
other was
I was curious about the curious about was the meeting that, just curious, I was just curious about the open meeting requirements for the meeting itself, that's all. I just wanted
Okay.
one clarification.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other concerns? Were we to hear from the public here, or were we, it was commissioners? Howell? Yes.
I make a motion that we adopt version 1 as our official map for the redistricting of Bibb County and send that to the full committee.
Okay, and I would second that.
Okay.
Were you gonna second?
To add the proposed version 2
Got
of it.
a motion and second on that. You have a substitute?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we do have a motion. There's an alternative motion, and that is to adopt the second version.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second? All right, that motion fails for lack of a second. We will vote on the original motion, and that motion is to approve the original version, the one that was agreed upon in Atlanta at the reapportionment office. Well, we agreed, we worked on it. The three voting members are Howell, Lucas, and Brunson. All in favor of that motion to approve that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the vote is 2-1. We will recommend to the full commission at the 6 o'clock meeting the approval of version 1. Will other motions be appropriate at that time, Mr. Attorney? All right. We are operating under, do we need to approve the resolution? Resolution,
I think you just voted on that.
I think you just did. Yes, ma'am.
because that includes everything.
So the title of that resolution is a resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission approving the attached commission district map and requesting that the local delegation to the Georgia General Assembly introduce local legislation amending the charter of Macon-Bibb County to adopt and incorporate said map and other lawful purposes.
Okay, so that was incorporated into the motion. Okay, and we have approved sending on to the commission the original version, the one that was adopted, was worked on in Atlanta. Is there anything else, Mr. Attorneys, that we need to cover?
No.
If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and second to adjourn. We are adjourned.